The moment Sarah opened that envelope, everything changed forever. But it wasn't the money that broke his heart. It was what she chose to do with it. Marcus stood at his office window on the 40th floor, watching the busy streets of downtown Chicago below. Cars moved like tiny ants. People rushed to their jobs, but up here everything felt still and cold. He was worth $500 million, but right now he felt like the poorest man alive. His phone buzzed. Another text from Jessica, his girlfriend of 2 years. "Baby, can't wait for our trip to Paris. I found the perfect dress at that boutique. Only $8,000. You don't mind, right? Love you." Marcus didn't reply. He never seemed to mind anything anymore. That was the problem. At 35, Marcus had built his tech company from nothing. He created apps that helped small businesses grow. Everyone called him a genius. Magazines put his face on covers. But lately, all he could think about was his father's last words. "Son, money shows you who people really are. Make sure you're looking." 3 women were in his life now. 3 women he cared about. But which one really cared about him? Jessica was beautiful, popular, and always knew the right thing to say at parties. She had 200,000 followers on social media and looked like a movie star. Everyone envied Marcus when they walked into a room together. Then there was Amanda, his business partner and closest friend. She was smart, driven, and had worked beside him for 5 years building their company. She knew his dreams, his fears, his late-night worries about whether he was making the right choices. And finally, there was Sarah. She cleaned his office building every night when everyone else went home. She was quiet, kind, and the only person who asked how he was doing without wanting something in return. When his father died last year, she was the one who brought him soup and sat with him in silence when words felt too heavy. Marcus had been thinking about this for weeks. There was only one way to find out who these women really were. He was going to give them each the same gift, unlimited money, for 1 week. No rules, no limits, no questions asked. Then he would watch what they did with it. His assistant knocked on his door. "Mr. Chen, your 3 p.m. meeting is here." "Cancel it," Marcus said. "I have something more important to do." That evening, Marcus prepared 3 identical envelopes. Inside each one was a black credit card with no spending limit and a simple note. "This is yours for 1 week. Spend it however makes you happy. No questions asked. Marcus." His hand shook as he sealed the envelopes. This wasn't about the money. It was about truth. And truth, he was learning, was the most expensive thing of all. Jessica received her envelope at the fancy restaurant where they always met for dinner. She was checking her Instagram when Marcus slid it across the white tablecloth. "What's this?" she asked, her perfectly painted nails tapping against the envelope. "Open it." Her eyes went wide when she saw the card. "Marcus, what is this for?" "I want to spoil you," he said, watching her face carefully. 1 week. Buy whatever makes you happy." Jessica squealed so loud that other diners turned to look. She jumped up and kissed him, her blonde hair catching the candlelight.
"Oh my God, baby, you're the best. I love you so much."
But as she hugged him, Marcus noticed she was already typing on her phone with one hand, probably telling her friends. "I can't wait to go shopping tomorrow," she whispered in his ear. "I'm going to make you so proud." Marcus smiled, but his heart felt heavy. He wondered what making him proud meant to her. The next morning, Jessica's spending began before most people were awake. By 9 a.m., she had already bought a $15,000 designer handbag, $3,000 shoes, and was posting pictures of herself with the shopping bags. Her Instagram story that day told the whole story. "When your man treats you like the queen you are, living my best life. Number blessed, number spoiled, number rich girltings." By lunch, she had spent $45,000, a diamond bracelet that sparkled like stars, a silk dress that cost more than most people's cars, professional photos at a fancy studio to show off her new look. But Marcus noticed something that made his stomach hurt. In all her posts, all her excitement, She never once mentioned him by name. It was always my man or someone special. Like he was a credit card with legs, not a person she loved. That evening, Jessica threw a party at her apartment. She invited 50 of her closest friends, most of whom Marcus had never met. She hired professional bartenders, bought expensive champagne, and had the whole thing catered by the city's most exclusive restaurant. Marcus wasn't invited. I wanted it to be a surprise for everyone, she explained when he asked. They're so excited to see all my new things. Don't worry, baby. I'll take lots of pictures for you. As Marcus hung up the phone, he felt like he was disappearing. In Jessica's world, he was becoming invisible, just the money behind the magic show. Amanda received her envelope at the office the next day. She was working late, as usual, surrounded by spreadsheets and coffee cups. "What's this?" she asked, looking up from her computer. "A thank you," Marcus said, "for everything you've done for the company. 1 week, no limits." Amanda studied the card carefully, then looked at Marcus with her sharp green eyes. "What's the catch?" "No catch. You work harder than anyone I know. You deserve this." She nodded slowly. "Thank you, Marcus. This is very generous." But there was something in her voice, a calculating tone that made Marcus uncomfortable, like she was already making plans. Amanda's spending was different from Jessica's. She didn't buy clothes or jewelry. Instead, she signed up for expensive business courses, hired a professional photographer for new headshots, and joined 3 exclusive networking clubs that cost $10,000 each just to get in. On day 2, she attended a private dinner for tech executives, the kind of dinner Marcus usually went to, but this time, Amanda went alone. She wore a $5,000 business suit and carried a $2,000 briefcase. Marcus found out because his friend David was there. "Your partner Amanda was at the Peterson Group dinner last night," David told him. "She was telling everyone she's the real brain behind your company, said she's looking for investors for her own startup." Marcus felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. "What?" She had business cards printed up. Amanda Rodriguez, CEO and founder. She was handing them out to everyone, including your biggest competitors. That night, Marcus confronted Amanda in her office. "David told me about the dinner," he said quietly. Amanda didn't look surprised. She leaned back in her chair and smiled. "Business is business, Marcus. You gave me the money to invest in my future. I'm investing. By stealing my clients? By building my own empire. You've had your turn at the top. Maybe it's time for someone else to shine." Marcus stared at the woman he'd trusted with his deepest business secrets, his biggest fears, his wildest dreams. "I thought we were partners." "We were. Now I'm ready to be the boss." As Marcus left her office, he realized Amanda had never seen him as a friend or partner. He was just a stepping stone on her path to power. The money had simply given her the courage to show her true face. Sarah almost didn't open the envelope. Marcus found it 3 days later, sitting on her small kitchen table in her tiny apartment, still sealed. "Why didn't you open it?" he asked. Sarah looked embarrassed. She was wearing her usual jeans and a simple sweater, her dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. Her apartment was clean but old, with furniture that had seen better days and walls that needed painting. "I was scared," she admitted. "I thought maybe I did something wrong. Rich people don't usually give money to cleaning ladies." Marcus sat down across from her at the table. "You didn't do anything wrong. I wanted to give you something nice. You work so hard." Sarah opened the envelope with careful fingers, like it might break. When she saw the credit card, she gasped. "Mr. Chen, I can't take this. This is too much." "It's Marcus, and yes, you can. 1 week. Buy something that makes you happy." Sarah held the card like it was made of glass. "What if I spend too much? What if I break it?" Marcus smiled, the first real smile he'd had in days. "You can't break it, and you can't spend too much. Just be happy, Sarah. That's all I want." What Sarah did next changed everything Marcus thought he knew about people. On day 1, she paid her mother's medical bills. Her mom had been sick for months, and Sarah had been working double shifts to afford the treatments. The bill was $12,000. Every one. Money that would have taken Sarah 2 years to save. On day 2, she went to her old elementary school. The principal, Mrs. Williams, later called Marcus. She found his number and wanted to know who the anonymous donor was. "Someone paid for new books for our entire library," Mrs. Williams said. "And art supplies for every classroom. And they paid for lunches for every child who needs them for the whole year. Do you know who would do such a thing?" Marcus knew. On day 3, Sarah went to the homeless shelter where she volunteered on weekends. She bought winter coats for everyone there, warm blankets, hot meals from the best restaurant in the neighborhood, not because it was fancy, but because she wanted the homeless people to feel special, just once. She bought a car, but not for herself. Her neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, was 78 years old and had been taking 3 buses to get to her doctor appointments. Sarah bought her a small, safe car and paid for a year of insurance. By the end of the week, Sarah had spent $89,000, but she had bought herself exactly one thing: a $12 book of poetry from a used bookstore. When Marcus asked her why, she said, "I've always wanted to read beautiful words, but books felt like a luxury I couldn't afford." Marcus called all 3 women to his office on Friday evening. He sat behind his desk, his heart pounding like a drum. Outside, the city lights were starting to twinkle as the sun set. Jessica arrived first, wearing a new $4,000 dress and carrying a $8,000 purse. She looked like a movie star, but when she hugged Marcus, it felt cold and performative. Amanda came next, in her new power suit, carrying her expensive briefcase. She shook Marcus's hand like they were strangers meeting for the first time. Sarah came last, still in her cleaning uniform, because she had just finished work. She looked nervous and small compared to the other 2 women, but when she smiled at Marcus, it was warm and real. "I suppose you're wondering why I asked you all here," Marcus began. "Please tell me it's not about the money," Jessica said, checking her reflection in her phone camera. "I can return the dress if you want, but the handbag is non-returnable." Marcus looked at each woman carefully. "This week was a test. I gave each of you the same amount of freedom and watched what you did with it." The room went silent. "Jessica, you spent $127,000 in 1 week. You bought beautiful things, threw parties, and took pictures, but you never once asked if I wanted to join you. You used my gift to celebrate yourself, and somehow I felt more alone than ever." Jessica's face went red. "That's not fair. You said no questions asked. I was having fun. Isn't that what you wanted?" Marcus turned to Amanda. "Amanda, you spent $94,000 on your future without me. You used my gift to build your own empire and steal my clients. You turned my trust into your weapon." Amanda crossed her arms. "You're being dramatic, Marcus. I'm being smart. Money is power, and you gave me power. I used it." Finally, Marcus looked at Sarah. She was staring at her hands, tears in her eyes. "Sarah, you spent $89,000 in 1 week, but you spent it on everyone except yourself, your mother, children at the school, homeless people, your elderly neighbor. You bought yourself 1 book that cost $12. Sarah looked up, scared. Marcus felt his throat get tight. "Sarah, you did everything right. You showed me something I'd forgotten. That real love isn't about taking, it's about giving. And you gave your heart to everyone who needed it." Jessica stood up, angry. "So what? You're choosing the maid over me? This is ridiculous, Marcus. I'm beautiful. I'm fun. I make you look good." "You make yourself look good," Marcus said quietly. "I was just the credit card that paid for it." Amanda stood up too. "Fine. If that's how you feel, I quit. I'll take half your clients with me." "Actually," Marcus said, "you won't. I had lawyers check your contract this week. You can't take my clients or my technology. But you're right. You should quit. I don't want to work with someone I can't trust." Both women left, slamming the door behind them. Marcus and Sarah sat alone in the quiet office. "I'm sorry you lost your friends because of me," Sarah said softly. Marcus walked around his desk, and knelt down beside her chair. "Sarah, they weren't my friends. They were people who loved my money, but not me. There's a difference." Sarah looked at him with her honest brown eyes. "What happens now?" Marcus took her hand. "Now I start living my life with someone who sees my heart instead of my bank account." 6 months later, Marcus's life looked completely different. Jessica tried to contact him twice, both times when she needed money. She had returned most of the expensive items she'd bought and was back to her old life, looking for the next rich man to spoil her. Amanda had indeed started her own company, but without Marcus's technology and client list, it was struggling. She'd burned too many bridges and trusted too few people. Marcus heard she was working 80-hour weeks just to pay rent. But Sarah had changed Marcus's world. She moved into his apartment, but not because she wanted his money. She moved in because she wanted to take care of him the way she took care of everyone else she loved. She cooked simple, delicious meals. She filled the empty spaces with laughter and kindness. She turned his cold, expensive apartment into a warm home. Marcus learned to see the world through Sarah's eyes. Instead of buying expensive art for his walls, they visited free galleries and talked about what made them feel something. Instead of eating at fancy restaurants, they cooked together and shared stories about their childhoods. Sarah went back to school to become a teacher. Marcus paid for it. But it was Sarah's dream, her choice, her path. She wanted to help children learn and grow. She wanted to make a difference in the world, one small act of kindness at a time. On their first anniversary, NEL, not of dating, but of the day she opened that envelope, Marcus took Sarah back to her old apartment building. But instead of going to her old place, they went to the roof. The city spread out below them, lights twinkling like stars fallen to earth. Sarah was wearing a simple blue dress that cost $30, but she looked more beautiful than any woman Marcus had ever seen. "Sarah," Marcus said, getting down on one knee. Sarah gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. "A year ago, I thought I knew what love was. I thought it was about finding someone who wanted to be with me. But you taught me that real love is about finding someone you want to give your whole heart to." He pulled out a ring. Not the biggest diamond or the most expensive setting, but something simple and beautiful, like Sarah herself. "Sarah Martinez, will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life trying to be half as good as you are?" Sarah was crying now, happy tears that caught the city lights like tiny diamonds. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Marcus, I love you." As he slipped the ring on her finger, Marcus realized he had finally learned his father's lesson. Money had shown him who people really were. But more importantly, love had shown him who he could become. What Marcus discovered about Sarah's past would either destroy their love forever or prove that some bonds are unbreakable. The truth was hiding in plain sight, and it changed everything. 3 years had passed since that night on the rooftop when Marcus proposed to Sarah. Their wedding had been small and simple, just family and close friends in Sarah's childhood church. No magazine photographers, no expensive venue, just two people promising to love each other forever. But on this cold December morning, Marcus sat in his office staring at a folder that could destroy everything they had built together. His private investigator, James, had called that morning. "Marcus, you need to see this. It's about Sarah." The folder contained old newspaper clippings, school records, and photographs that made Marcus's hands shake as he looked through them. Sarah Martinez wasn't who she said she was. The first photo showed a young girl, maybe 16 years old, standing next to an older man in an expensive suit. The girl looked exactly like Sarah, but her clothes were designer, her hair professionally styled. The caption read, "Oil heiress. Sarah Wellington celebrates her father's newest business deal." Marcus flipped through more papers. School records from the most expensive private schools in Texas. Bank statements showing a trust fund worth $50 million. News articles about the Wellington family's charitable foundation. Sarah Wellington, not Sarah Martinez. The last document in the folder was a death certificate. Richard Wellington, aged 52, died in a car accident 7 years ago. The same year Sarah had started working as a cleaning lady in Chicago. Marcus felt sick to his stomach. Had Sarah been lying to him this whole time? Was she just another gold digger, but one smart enough to play the long game? His office door opened, and Sarah walked in carrying 2 cups of coffee and wearing her bright smile. "I brought you lunch," she said, setting a homemade sandwich on his desk. "You forgot to eat again, didn't you?" Marcus looked at the woman he loved, her simple jeans, her hair in a messy bun, her hands rough from the part-time cleaning job she still insisted on keeping, even though she didn't need the money. "Sarah," he said quietly, "we need to talk." Something in his voice made her smile disappear. She sat down slowly, her eyes worried. "What's wrong?" "Every penny goes to helping poor families, paying medical bills, saving homes from foreclosure, sending kids to college. I've never spent a single dollar of my father's money on myself." She stood up and walked to the window, her back to Marcus. "I changed my name to my mother's maiden name, Martinez. I moved to Chicago where nobody knew the Wellington family. And I got a job cleaning offices because I wanted to work with my hands, to do something honest and real. I wanted to earn my own way in the world." Marcus stared at his wife's back, feeling like the worst person alive. "Sarah, I met you by accident," she continued, not turning around. "I was cleaning your building, and you were working late. You were kind to me when you didn't have to be. You saw me as a person, not as a service. And for the first time in years, I felt like maybe I could be myself again." She finally turned around, tears streaming down her face. "I should have told you the truth earlier. I know that. But I was scared. I was scared you would think I was lying about loving you, for you. I was scared you would think I was just another rich girl playing games." Marcus stood up and walked around his desk, but Sarah stepped back. "I understand if you can't forgive me," she said. "I understand if you feel like our whole relationship is built on lies. But Marcus, I need you to know, every moment we've shared, every laugh, every tear, every time I told you I loved you, that was all real. That was all me. Not the girl in those pictures, but the woman I chose to become." Marcus sat alone in his office for hours after Sarah left. He called in sick for his meetings, canceled his dinner plans, and just sat in the growing darkness, thinking. He thought about the Sarah he knew, the woman who still insisted on making their bed every morning even though they had housekeepers, the woman who cried during sad movies and laughed until her stomach hurt at his terrible jokes, the woman who remembered the birthdays of every homeless person at the shelter and knew the names of all the children at the school where she volunteered. He thought about the night she had received that first credit card from him. How scared she had been to take it. How she had spent the money on everyone except herself. Now he understood. Sarah hadn't been humble because she was poor. She had been humble because she carried the weight of her father's sins and was trying to balance the scales through her own kindness. His phone rang. It was his mother. "Marcus," Sarah called me. "She's very upset." "What happened?" Marcus told his mother everything. About the investigation, the photos, the truth about Sarah's past. His mother listened quietly, then said, "Son, are you an idiot?" "Mom, that girl gave up $50 million because she didn't want to profit from other people's pain. She's been doing good works with that money for 7 years without telling anyone, including you." 6 months later, Marcus and Sarah announced the creation of the Wellington Chen Foundation, a nonprofit organization designed to help families who had been cheated by big businesses. The foundation had 3 main goals: provide legal help for families fighting unfair business practices, offer financial assistance for families losing their homes, and create education programs to teach people how to protect themselves from scams and fraud. Sarah insisted on being the public face of the foundation. At their first press conference, she told the whole world about her father's business practices and how his money was now being used to help his victims. "I cannot change what my father did," she said, standing at a podium in a simple blue dress. "But I can make sure his legacy becomes one of healing instead of harm." The response was incredible. Other wealthy people came forward with similar stories of family money earned through questionable means. The foundation grew from Sarah's $50 million to over $200 million in donations within the first year. Marcus was amazed watching his wife work. She met with every family personally, learning their stories, understanding their needs. She didn't just write checks, she created relationships. One evening, they were at home making dinner together when Sarah said, "I have something to tell you." Marcus looked up from chopping vegetables. "Please tell me it's not another secret identity." Sarah laughed. "No more secrets, I promise. But Marcus, I'm pregnant." Marcus dropped his knife. "What?" Sarah smiled, her eyes bright with happy tears. "We're going to have a baby." Marcus picked her up and spun her around the kitchen, both of them laughing and crying at the same time. "Our child is going to grow up knowing that love is more important than money." Sarah said, "That helping others is more important than helping yourself. That being good is more important than being rich." Marcus kissed his wife's forehead. "Our child is going to grow up with the best mother in the world." 5 years later, Marcus stood in the backyard of their new house. Not a mansion, but a comfortable home, with a big garden and a swing set. Their daughter Emma, now 4 years old, was playing with the neighborhood kids, her laughter filling the air like music. Sarah was 8 months pregnant with their second child, sitting in a chair Marcus had brought outside for her, reading a book to a group of children from the local school. The Wellington Chen Foundation had helped over 10,000 families. They had stopped 500 foreclosures, provided legal help for 2,000 fraud cases, and sent 1,500 kids to college. Sarah's father's money had finally been turned into something beautiful. Jessica had tried to reconnect with Marcus twice over the years, both times when she needed money. He had politely declined and suggested she contact the foundation if she needed help with anything important. Amanda's business had eventually failed, and she had moved to California to start over. Marcus heard she was doing well now, running a small but honest marketing company. She had never apologized for trying to steal his clients, but she had sent a card when Emma was born. "Congratulations, you found the right partner." It was signed simply A. As Marcus watched his wife reading to the children, he thought about the test he had given 3 women 5 years ago. He had thought he was testing them, but really, they had been testing him. They had shown him who he was and who he wanted to become. Emma ran up to him, grass stains on her dress and a big smile on her face. "Daddy, will you push me on the swing?" "Of course, princess." As he pushed his daughter higher and higher, Emma laughing with pure joy, Marcus thought about his father's words. Money shows you who people really are. His father had been right. Money had shown him exactly who Jessica and Amanda really were. But more importantly, it had shown him who Sarah really was. Not a poor cleaning lady or a rich heiress, but a woman with a heart bigger than any bank account. And it had shown him who he really was, too. Not just a successful businessman, but a husband and father who had learned that the best investment isn't in stocks or companies, but in the people you love. That evening, after the children had gone home and Emma was asleep, Marcus and Sarah sat on their back porch watching the stars. "Do you ever regret it?" Marcus asked. "Giving up all that money?" Sarah smiled, her hand resting on her pregnant belly. "I didn't give up anything. I gained everything that matters." She took his hand. "Besides, I'm richer now than my father ever was. I'm rich in love, rich in purpose, rich in the knowledge that our children will grow up knowing the difference between having money and having wealth." Marcus squeezed her hand. "What's the difference? Money is what you have. Wealth is who you become when you learn how to give it away." As they sat together under the starry sky, surrounded by the life they had built with love instead of money, Marcus realized that Sarah's test hadn't ended that day in his office 3 years ago. Every day, they were still being tested. Every choice they made, every person they helped, every moment they chose love over selfishness. Every day, it was all part of the same test. And every day, they were passing it together. Their second child was born 2 months later, a boy they named David, after Marcus's father. At the hospital, surrounded by family and friends, Marcus held his son and whispered, "You're going to grow up knowing what real wealth looks like, little man." Sarah smiled from her hospital bed. "He's going to grow up rich in all the ways that matter." And as Marcus looked around the room, at his wife, his daughter, his newborn son, and all the people who loved them not for their money, but for their hearts. He knew she was right. This was what wealth really looked like. This was what love really meant. This was what happened when you learned to give your heart instead of just your money. The test was over. Love had won. Thank you for joining us on this journey of love, truth, and redemption. Remember, the richest people aren't those who have the most money, but those who have learned what money can't buy: real love, true friendship, and a life spent helping others. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to our channel for more inspiring true life stories. Share this video with someone who needs to remember that love is always worth more than gold. And leave a comment telling us about a time when someone showed you what real wealth looks like. Until next time, remember, the best test of character isn't what you do when you have nothing to lose, but what you do when you have everything to give.